Okay. All right. Okay, so this may be going out just to Adrian because he's the only 11th grader. So we already did the pledge, so don't feel like you missed anything. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to go through some quick updates as far as like what's coming up. Have you guys gotten, a couple of questions for you guys. Have you gotten any communication yet from administration as far as what your specific schedule is after the break? Okay, you have. Because you're TVMSC still? Okay. Yeah. Yep. So all I know is your history and English because they flip-flop. This year, they flip-flop. Next year, there's just one history section, 2 English sections. Whatever. I don't want to get into all of that, but yeah. Okay, so Danton, here's my thing. You can advocate for yourself either by, one, asking all of your 6 other teachers when your classes, 5, because I do know like your second period elective one right now, that's second period on B-Day. I know that. Okay? And just listen. If you're talking, other people can't hear you, plus it delays everything. Okay? We're about to give you this information. You ready? First period with me is still first period. Okay? Second period is going to be English. Okay? So, but I will tell you, because a little birdie, thankfully, because I'm looking, I'm like, you got screens in front of you, and you're all like taking notes and so forth, and that's cool. Although, I'm just like, if I see somebody actually working on math or something, I'm like, seriously? You're going to communicate to me that, like, me trying to educate you during my time is not important, that you can't maintain total focus on what I'm doing in here? So little birdie is like, oh yeah, no, the first period history students really like it because then they get to work on their English homework that they didn't do the night before. So heaven help you if you ever entertain that thought or have in the past. Get it done, right? No, I know, it's a lot to do. No, I know that. I mean, I'm not dismissing that. You have a lot to do, and it's a regular kind of thing. In my class, it's like here. That's why I'm actually glad that we're going to be coming back because so much of it is done here. The way I do the teaching and the content and everything, it's here, okay? But yeah, first period history, then English on A days. So we'll see you guys on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I don't know what you have the rest of A day, and I don't know what you have the rest of B day. You know, that's good. I do know that we know, the teachers know it, but I don't know what all your various different schedules are. So hopefully, and you can, I'm sure Mrs. Anderson can send that out in some form. We've got like a spreadsheet, which is really easy to use with all the color codes and everything. And she's worked on it a lot and had to make some adjustments in order to make it work with everything else so that we get the normal nice lunch schedule. We get a longer lunch schedule, so like in the past. Because we don't have all these little piddly 5-minute break thingies, which aren't really 5 minutes. So, yeah, no, but I mean, it's like, so yeah, all that extra stuff. So you really will only have a 5-minute break between first and second, and then third and fourth. The break between second and third is lunch. So, if those of you guys who have felt like you couldn't really go off campus because there wasn't enough time, you got a little bit more time. I want to say like about 20 minutes more.
Oh, we figured it out. We can make it shape. We figured it out.
On Eagle Road?
Yeah. Wait, wow. How fast?
Do not violate any traffic laws. Isn't there a line there? I mean, I know they're efficient, but seriously. All right. Austin, it's been good knowing you. His final words were, I got anyway, whatever. Yeah. I got special sauce all over the interior of my car, which just got... So, let me continue. Speaking of food, and you guys I've never really noticed has been an issue. I know we've been directed as teachers to make sure that people are really wearing their masks on a regular basis and properly and so forth. Because I know there's still COVID out there, and I think maybe by the end of April, everybody up and maybe even you guys, the state, because the state's getting all kinds of stuff, vaccines and so forth in there, but up till 18 and over, we'll have the opportunity to get vaccinated, and you guys will be soon thereafter. So that's good, but there's still COVID and stuff going around. And we're going to have twice as many people in the building, and people are going to be sitting closer. Can't help that. So admin has instituted some policies. So there's less flexibility. As far as like eating in class, for me, it's always been very flexible, like don't be disruptive. Okay, so that's, because you get hungry when you get hungry. And I don't want to listen to Haley's tummy going, because she was rushing, she didn't get a chance to eat breakfast and yada, yada, yada. But here's the deal. That flexibility is now gone away in the sense that the administration and the board want to make sure that people have got their masks on almost at all times, except for, like, perfect timing, Haley, except when you're pulling your mask down to take a sip. That is still allowable, but otherwise, you can't eat in class. So I don't have that option. And I don't notice, most of you guys don't seem to be wanting to eat in first period. It seems like it's more like my after lunch crew. I know, exactly, yeah. It's like the after ones, because they're like, I want to play basketball during lunch, and just eat in class afterwards. I'm like, I don't care. But that's gone, okay? That's gone. As well, I have to give the bad news to the crew that hangs out. It's mostly 10th graders on green days, 9th graders on blue days. They hang out here at lunchtime. I'm like, I don't care. But that's not an option either. So it's because, I don't know. I think just to kind of reduce. Yeah, so the school is purchasing and going to have more picnic tables outside, so that should help a bit. And plus, you guys have the option of following Austin to see if he's going to be able to make it to Chick-fil-A in time. Maybe you want to go in his car, maybe you want to go to someplace a little closer. Is that going to be third period? You don't know, yeah. Well, you're going to have 2 third periods, and they'll be different. Okay? All right. Any other questions, logistic-y kind of stuff? Okay. All right, let's get to it. Okay. All right, here we go. Spanish Civil War. Ready? Mia, go ahead and you can write this down. Yes?
It's a 19-minute drive to Chick-fil-A, so it is about 20 minutes.
Depends on traffic. It's 19 minutes right now, but, sometimes Google, whatever those measurements are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'll take the tardy. Yeah, anyway. All right, here we go. Spanish Civil War, terrible, awful, atrocities. Let's transition so we can do this very quickly so we have more time to do as many review questions, because I know at the end of the class on yesterday, some of the juniors were like, are we going to get any more review questions? I'm like, no, we ran out of time. But, the thing is, study. There's a lot of true false. I want to say the test has got only 30 matching questions, and the remainder, 40 true false. So it's 50-50 on the true false. The matching is like 20%, unless you can narrow it down. So, all right. Are we ready? Are you finished? Okay. All right, so people were killed, Spanish Civil War. It was awful. The White Terror. Garen, who did the White Terror target and kill? I'll give you a choice. Supporters of the Republican or supporters of the Nationalists? Very good. Who did the Red Terror target then? Exactly. So when you looked at memorials built after the war, when Franco was in charge, of course, until the time he died in 1975, these are the kind of memorials that are going to be built. Ones with crosses reflecting and honoring the death of all those people who had died at the hands of the Red, Republicans, communists, anarchists, and so forth. You're not going to see memorials like the one over on the right until after Franco was gone. Those people obviously also mourned the loss of their families and so forth, but they couldn't do so publicly because the Franco government was like, well, you all deserve to die, right? Okay? I mean, I think I pointed out already, when the war was over, the death continued. Like 30,000 plus people were still being rounded up and killed. That happens sometimes at the end of the Civil War. When you lose, you might want to try and get out of the country if you can. Otherwise, there'll be people coming around to sweep up all of the bits and pieces of the disloyal ones. Not very pleasant. The Spanish Civil War. Okay? Francisco Franco went all the way up until 1975. Now, it was very interesting because he survived World War II. Haley, how did he survive World War II if all the other fascists like Mussolini and Hitler are getting defeated and killed? Shh! I asked Haley. He what? How did he manage? If his buddies Mussolini and Hitler were not around by the end of World War II, how did Franco, supported by the fascists in Spain, how did he manage to survive World War II? I'll ask you it a different way. In World War II, which side did he take? The Allies, like the United States, Britain, the Soviet Union, or the Axis, which is going to be like Germany and Italy and Japan? Or, third option, neutral. Exactly, yeah. So it's because he was neutral during World War II, he would remain in power afterwards, okay? Which is going to be a little weird. Just make a note of this. When we get to the Cold War, the United States and the freedom countries, for the most part, and this versus the Soviet Union, you know, the communist-dominated countries, Spain is going to be like not a full member of NATO, our military alliance, until after he's gone, okay? Spain is going to start becoming a little bit more of a normal European country after he is gone in 1975. Okay? It took a long time for him to die. His health was bad. It got worse. And so, you know, when you watch the nightly news and so forth, you get an update on Francisco Franco, and it literally sounded so much like Francisco Franco is still alive, but he's dying and he's in poor health. This went on for months. So the very first rendition of Saturday Night Live, which is still around, the original crew of Saturday Night Live made fun of that. Chevy Chase was the announcer for the Weekend Update, and he did his thing, and then they had Garrett Morris, and this may be politically incorrect today and making fun of people and so forth, but Garrett Morris, the lone African-American member of the crew, he did the news for the hard of hearing, basically the top headlines. So instead of like having somebody doing sign language and so forth, when it came turn for Chevy Chase to repeat the news, Garrett Morris repeated it even louder by shouting really loud. So yeah, when you see Merritt go up to him and go, Francisco Franco is still dead, because, yeah, anyway, that was the thing. That's, yeah. SNL, 12 seconds, here you go. There's Chevy Chase, there's Garrett Morris. News for the hard of hearing. Like I say, this is 1970s. These are all the old people who are like completely wrong, and we do everything wrong, and we never get it right. This is the stuff we laugh at. Here we go. Okay, we'll save that for the next group. All right. Did you like that? How many guys like, woohoo, old school humor, even if it's like, yeah, anyway. It was classic, yeah. Okay, so Franco, write this down, rather than have another general take over after him, like a military dictatorship that he'd been running, he decides to pick the royal family, which has been sitting around in Spain going, wow, we haven't been monarchs since 1931. He picks the latest in the line of the royal family. The guy's name is Juan Carlos, and he says, hey, Juan Carlos, when I'm dead, you take over, thinking that Juan Carlos will like rule the country like an absolute, monarch. When Juan Carlos comes in, make sure you write this down. He looks around and he's like, yeah, Spain wants to be part of the European club. And to the extent that there are monarchs in Europe, they have extremely limited powers. In other words, they are, write it down, constitutional monarchs, like in Britain and the Netherlands and Norway and Sweden and Denmark. Anyway, so that's what he does. He sets up, write it down, Juan Carlos sets up free elections, free speech, democracy in his country. And of course, who starts to get a little bit irritated with that? The military, okay? They have a new flag there, by the way, as far as flags go, because I remember there was one Capitol High teacher that still had like a Franco-era flag in her classroom. A exchange student came in and goes, ah! That's Franco's flag over there on the left, same colors, But there is the new flag from 1975 on, I guess, with the crown indicating Juan Carlos. So anyway, the military, this is crazy. I mean, you thought January 6th in Washington, D.C. was kind of crazy. Where our military was not involved, there just wasn't enough law enforcement to deal with people who were like, hey, let's go ahead and knock through here and go into the Capitol building. The military, part of the military, in 1981, they were frustrated with politics, and they're like, hey, let's do it like they did in 1936 with Francisco Franco. The military went into the Parliament building, into the Assembly, and attempted a coup. And you'll literally see it, like, and so like this one parliamentary leader is like getting into an argument with this military guy, and the military guy's like, I know how to end this argument. And like all the parliamentarians and so forth are like ducking for cover. I mean, if they had noticed, they probably would have left the building. So this is really tense. The military is actively involved because they're not happy with some of the results of the election, and they're not as powerful as they were under Franco. So here's the deal. What puts an end? Obviously, it's an attempted coup. What happens? The king gets on the television and basically says to the national audience, including the military, you need to go back to your barracks. Handled it very well. They went back to their barracks. And the Spanish military will never attempt another military coup again, which is good. Juan Carlos, very popular in Spain. But in modern times, people are like, oh, what have you done for us lately? Oh, you spent a bunch of money going off on a safari hunt in Africa. Well, we don't like that. That's a waste. So they put a lot of pressure on him, and he quit. And so his much more popular son is now the king of Spain. Okay? So let me play that for you. If you don't know Spanish very well, don't worry. There's subtitles, but they won't really work for you unless you know how to read Turkish. Here's the Parliament building. The bald guy's the leader. There's the coup leader. I guess the debate is over. Wow. That's part of the Spanish military. Yeah, these guys are like, what the heck? Okay, now we're going to get the king doing his televised announcement. Can you follow this?
Confirmo que he ordenado a las autoridades civiles y a la Junta de Jefes de Estado Mayor que tomen todas las medidas necesarias para mantener el orden constitucional dentro de la legalidad vigente.
Did you follow that a little bit? And so they went through the front door. Now they're going out the window, getting handshakes from their officers, heading back to the barracks. I don't think any of them were particularly punished, but the crowd was happy that democracy remained in Spain. Okay? They've got all kinds of various different challenges, but I don't believe so, no. Yeah, I think it's kind of like how to save face in order to get him to go back and, back away and so forth. Because otherwise, I mean, what happened the last time the military tried to take over power in 1936? A 3-year civil war, millions dead. Okay, so let's try not to do that again. All right? Questions, comments? Spanish Civil War. All right, turn to the very back of your packet now. And the remaining part, we're going to do a little bit of a paper 3 unit, which is like Americas and World War II. We're going to focus on the pre-World War II aspect of it, starting with the good neighbor policy. Okay, this is specifically identified by IB. Let's talk about the good neighbor policy. This is an official policy by the United States government toward Latin American country. And it is instituted by President number 32, Franklin D. Roosevelt, who announces it at his inauguration, March 8th, 1933. Okay? So he's going to be elected 4 different times. And he basically says, hey, Latin America, I know, looking back, you feel like the United States has really been messing with your business. And we've seen plenty of examples of that. And he says, from here on out, it is the policy of the United States because no state has the right to intervene in the internal or external affairs of another. That's what he says. So he's like, we're not going to mess with you anymore. I know that there's U.S. businesses that like it when the United States military comes in and makes sure that U.S. businesses can maintain control of the land and all the banana production, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, right, banana republics, exactly. So Roosevelt actually puts accent behind his words. 3 examples, you ready? First 2, he pulls out the United States military from 2 Latin American countries. First one, Nicaragua, 1933. Okay? So he pulls the Marines out that had been there for a while, supporting the Nicaraguan government to make sure that land wasn't handed over. The second one is 1934, Haiti, right, in the Caribbean, Haiti. So the United States military is pulled out of those 2. So Latin American countries are like, wow, this is really good. Cuba is like, could we get rid of that Platt Amendment that was forced down our throats, which, in order to get independence after the Spanish-American War, we had to agree that the United States could intervene militarily if it ever was in the U.S. security interests. Roosevelt was like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We signed a new treaty with Cuba, 1934, annulling the Platt Amendment. We still had our Guantanamo base there. But as far as having an official thing where the Cubans are like, yeah, sure, the United States can come in if they're doing the wrong thing militarily, national security-wise, we got rid of that. Okay? So that's a very clear example of the good neighbor policy. Now make a little note of this. When we get to World War II, is the United States going to be like, who cares what Latin America is doing when we're at war with Germany and so forth? Oh, we will care. There will be no Latin American countries that are going to take the side of the Germans. Not that they could easily do that, but we'll cover that a little bit more when we get to World War II. Yeah. Mexico, they're not even going to they're going to be like, let's see, can we make money on oil sales to the Allies? Yeah, that's good enough. We'll help you out, the Allies. Another component part of this, write this down, is a real concerted effort by the government to improve the image of Latin America through Hollywood. And if you're wondering, what the heck is the government supposed to do with Hollywood? The Hollywood can do its own things and its movies and so forth. Well, sometimes, who's doing this one? Oh, Jacob's doing this one. His IA is on the United States government policies, contracts with Disney for wartime propaganda during World War II. So this is sort of an effort on the part of the government to improve the image of Latin American people. Write this down. Previously, Latin American people had been portrayed in entertainment as lazy, shiftless, corrupt, just inferior. Very racist. Kind of like how African Americans were portrayed in minstrel shows and early movies. That's why if you get on Disney Plus, there's if they even show it anymore, Dumbo, they have a warning on there saying, yeah, because they're not being portrayed very positively. It's a question as to whether or not, I'm generally of the opinion it's know what you're getting into if you're going to watch this form of entertainment. Because entertainment that was being produced at that time certainly had racist overtones, whether it was Latin American or African American and so forth. Okay? Even Dr. Seuss, some of his characters in there, it's Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of just know that. And you've heard me say before, one of the greatest film directors ever was a Nazi for Hitler. No, it was a racist in the United States of America that made all these different things. It's people will be able to do the same things. People are doing the same things now about amazing creative things that are being produced in our generation that are flawed. Anyway, so one of the things was, write it down, Carmen Miranda. She's a Brazilian entertainer and singer and dancer. And the United States government and Hollywood will go along with it. They're like, okay, let's do some movies that portray Latin Americans as positive. Which is interesting because if you look back, you're going to erase the previous stereotypes of lazy, shiftless Latin Americans to happy, happy people with banana on their head. I mean, literally, her fruit hat thing is going to be almost like a stereotype, almost like, oh my gosh, seriously? Chiquita Banana brand is going to take that, and they'll have like a banana with a singing female banana with a fruit hat. Carmen Miranda, yeah. So it's like, it's an improvement, but let's continue on and actually maybe look at portraying people as they really are. Yeah. Well, at the time, they're wondering, it's like, wow, is that what we do? I'm supposed to wear bananas in my head when I go travel to Brazil. I'll just give you a little bit of a taste of this. Sorry. Yeah, the banana. Hollywood. Chicka chicka boom chick. Okay. Now we have the arrival of, I think he's from American, although he looks from Latin America, but anyway, he's sort of saying, hey, you know, we're going to honor you. Let's hear him.
My friends, I extend felicitations to our South American relations. May we never leave behind us all the common ties that bind us. 130 million people send regards to you. And before I return, there's one thing you can do. Come on and sing the chicka chicka boom chick.
Everyone together.
That crazy thing.
Chicka chicka boom chick.
Brazilians proud the chicka chicka boom chick. They like it sound of chicka 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 boom chick. It came from the jungle where they tune everyone to be. We do not It don't make sense to chicka chicka boom.
So we play it all the way to the end? Okay.
But it's immense, chicka chicka boom.
Chicka 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 boom.
To change the things away. Chicka chicka boom. Chicka chicka boom.
So, what do you think? Mia, what'd you think? And it's interesting because I didn't show you an example of like how Latin American people were portrayed beforehand. You look at that and go, oh, that would have been really, really awful, terrible, and so forth.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And yet this is like an improvement. Still plenty of room to go. Yeah. And actually, Hollywood movies is like, anyway, yeah. It's kind of stupid. So you're like, forget that. All right. Let's go down to, we're going to look at Canada, Mexico, Brazil very briefly. Canada, Mexico, Brazil, the relations between the United States and what's going on in those countries as we follow them kind of throughout the 20th century. With respect to Canada, let's say this. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Canada. Hello. They also had the Great Depression in the 1930s, just like the United States and many other parts of the world. 40% decline in their gross domestic product. So their economy was hit hard. Canada, okay? What are the things, and unemployment reaching up to 27%? Oh, is really, really high. And of course, those people that are employed aren't necessarily getting paid as much or working as many hours as they previously had. Really bad. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the Great Depression, a lot of countries did. They're like, oh my gosh, we're going to make sure that our people are working. So they put all kinds of high tariffs and restrictions on imported goods because we want to hire the Americans and the Canadians don't want to hire the Canadians. Well, guess what happened to trade between those two countries, the United States and Canada? It ground to like almost a halt, which really hurt the economic situation in both countries. So, write this down. By 1935, Canada and the United States looked and said, okay, let's try and help each other out. It's called the Reciprocal Trade Agreement, 1935, and the terms are quite simple. Lower the tariffs between the two countries. Okay, so more goods can go at decent prices back and forth between the United States and Canada. And we'll see if you get to modern times and so forth, That's the attitude between the United States and Canada, as well as many other countries, trying to increase trade and not have a trade war. Okay? The other point, keep an eye on as we get closer to World War II, is Canada going to be aligned with Britain? Yes, and they will join Britain in the beginning of World War II. They won't wait very long, although they do get control of their own foreign policy. Next one, Mexico. Mexico really appreciates the good neighbor policy in the 1930s, right? Okay, because they're always very, very watchful of what the United States is up to. As we get closer to World War II, the Mexicans are going to look and go, okay, we're going to get another offer from Germany to like join on their side. The Germans don't even bother this time because the British naval embargo blockade is going to go into effect again, and Mexico will look to make a lot of money, write it down, selling oil to the British. And when the war, when they do finally join the war in 1942, they will send troops, we'll have it in your notes more later on, to fight in the Pacific on the side of the Americas against the Japanese. Okay? Finally, Brazil is kind of interesting. There we go. The key person to focus on there is Getulio Vargas. Getulio Vargas will come to power in 1930 after a revolt spurred by difficulties from the Great Depression, okay, which really hits Brazil because one of their chief exports to other parts of the world is really going to drop. What is one of the chief exports in Brazil? That is considered an optional thing for some people. Other people are like, no, I need it every morning. Coffee, very good. So, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, there we go. So he's a populist, and he's going to try and promote various different things to help out the middle class and urban interests. He's going to try to institute in Brazil something similar to what Roosevelt did. Roosevelt is going to have the New Deal to try and put people back to work. Vargas is going to do the same thing, but he's going to take a turn. Write it down. He's going to become quite fascist, right? So he's going to be a very interesting one to keep an eye on. When we get to World War II, he's going to have a very fascist government in there. In fact, 1937, he declares martial law, military law. He doesn't want to have to deal with the opposition, so he takes control of the government, like so many other countries. He calls it the new state, Estado Novo, and have martial law in effect in his country with him in charge, trying to get them through the Great Depression. Again, when we get to World War II, you might see some leanings toward Germany, which is a fascist state, and Italy, which is a fascist state, but they're ultimately going to stay out until they join on the side of the Allies, and they will send troops to fight in World War II. That's Brazil. Let's do review. Okay? Okay? That's it? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, I know. I keep changing it, and I know. I've changed it twice, and it is like it's possessed. It keeps wanting to go back. Obviously, I do not understand technology enough to make a clock obey my changes. Maybe Congress will finally pass a bill that Republicans and Democrats can all support, getting rid of daylight savings. Do we really need it? I don't think we need it anymore. Just like stick with the time, you know. Go Arizona. All right. You want to go first, or do you want to call on somebody? Okay. All right, here we go. Like I say, 30 matching, and the remaining 40 are true false. Okay. Give me the name of this man. He is the... and sometimes it's not going to be so easy. It's not like I'm going to say Japanese, although this person is Japanese. He's going to lead his country to gain control of much of East Asia. And it's not the Japanese emperor. Who's the military dictator that's going to take control of much of East Asia? And to move things along very quickly, pop your hands up as soon as you know. That way we'll get to more questions. Okay? And I'm sorry, all of the... because somebody was asking, I think, maybe it was the 10th grade. The notes handout, I don't have any more of those, but you can go on Google Classroom to get the deal. I can tell you this person's name is on page 1 and 4th bullet point. Japanese dictator. Anybody want to put their hand up to help them out? Yeah, on page 1, 4th bullet point. Pop your hand up to help them out. We're eating up a lot of time on this one. I'm not going to get to too many. I'm looking at my foot. Oh, we got a hand up behind. Call Denton. No, I told you it's not the emperor. It was the military dictator that seems to have most of the control.
Oh, no.
Not the emperor.
I knew it was only
Jeremiah's got his hand up.
a Tojo.
Tojo, yep. Hideki Tojo. Okay? All right, who goes next? Cole. All right, Cole. Help me out with this one. This is the winning party in the Chinese Civil War. They were allied for a while with the communists before a 1972 bloody purge. Initials KMT. What does that stand for in China? Also known as, so this Chinese Civil War, excuse me, page 4, first bullet point. Okay, another name for nationalists or KMT in China. Full name, anybody? I'm going to call on Aiden. He's got his hand up, or here. Kuomintang. Is that what you meant to say? Okay, Kuomintang. Yes, Kuomintang. Very good. Okay, Cola goes. Danton. Location is very important. Students haven't tough on this one, but this is an area that was handed over as a result of the Munich Agreement. Hitler was able to take over German-speaking areas in Czechoslovakia, even though the Czechs were like, seriously? Come on, help us out. France, Britain, but the French and British didn't. What was that region called? Page 1, third bullet point. It is, correct, very good. Danton, who goes next? Nice. Garen, okay, Sudetenland is on the test. All of these things are on the test, okay? Garen, give me the name of the country that actually was taken over by Hitler during the Anschluss. German-speaking country. He's like, hey, they speak German, and I'm from there, so we should just be able to take it over. Anschluss. Page 1, also third bullet point. Got a hand up? Austria is the one. Yep. Just before they had the vote. Yeah, just before they had the vote, Hitler sent his troops in. Anschluss. Okay, Garen, who goes? Okay. Oh, it's Ireland today, Haley. It's Irish Day, St. Patrick's Day. So we've got 2 leaders of the Irish War of Independence. Michael Collins ended up dead, although he supported the Anglo-Irish Treaty, but this man did not support the Anglo-Irish Treaty because not all of Ireland was going to be part of independent Ireland. The northern part would remain part of the United Kingdom. Who was that Irish politician? Not Michael Collins, but he opposed Michael Collins ultimately. Eamon de Valera is the correct answer. Very good. Okay, Haley, who goes? Tessa. The war that we spent the least amount of time on, the Chaco War. Who was the winner? Although they got land and there really wasn't much oil in and under it, at least they didn't find it until many, many years later. Of the 2 countries that fought the Chaco War, which did better? You've got a pair of countries that fought the Chaco War. Paraguay is the correct answer. Okay, Bolivia was the other one. Okay, Tessa goes. Okay, Austin. Give me the name of this man. Okay. Here's what you need to know about him. He actually led the Long March, a remnant group of Chinese communists during the Chinese Civil War. He led that group that had been mostly purged and killed. Who was that guy? No, Sun Yat-sen was not the one. Who was the lead Chinese communist? He's looking out at the classroom right now from the center of his silkscreen picture. Tell me now. If you don't know now, you can call on somebody else now. Mao Zedong. Okay? Austin, who goes? Mia. This one's a little trickier, and I've been giving this one as well. This was the coalition of left-wing parties that won in Spain in 1936, and they'll ultimately be like the Republicans in it. But what was their, it's 2 words, what was that coalition referred to when they won the election in Spain in 1936, which then soon thereafter prompted, yeah, it's going to be like Spanish Civil War, fourth bullet point, or first bullet point in Origins. They were more popular than the right-wing parties in that particular election. Communists were part of that coalition along with socialists. Together they were known as Popular Front. Okay, that's going to be that coalition in Spain. Mia, who goes? Okay, Jerry, give me the name of this location. The Germans, the Luftwaffe, bombed it. And it will be portrayed by Pablo Picasso in the painting right here of the same title. What is the name of that community, that Basque community that was bombed? Guernica is correct. Who goes next? Aiden, give me the name of the country that lended support to the Republicans in the Spanish Civil War, and of course, the communists who were aligned for a while with the nationalists in the Chinese Civil War, or before the Civil War broke out, when they were going after the warlords. Who was the only group? This was in the early stages in China when they, Sun Yat-sen was like, yeah, sure, give us some help and we'll let the communists participate until Order 66, supposedly. What country? Their favorite color is red. What country is that? Russia. Soviet Union, yeah, very good. Soviet Union. Okay, who goes next? Okay. Garrett, give me the name of the country that gained its independence from Britain in the 1920s after an independence war. From Britain. And they celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, so the rest of the country is known as Ireland, yes. The rest of Ireland, yeah. The rest of Ireland. There's a lot of true-false. We didn't get to any of the true-false. We got to a couple of from each of the different sections of the matching. So the true-false covers everything else. There's a lot in there. So just make sure you cover your notes very carefully. If you've misplaced the handout, go on Google Classroom, pull that down, because all those different terms and so forth will pop up. It's a good way to kind of like guide yourself as you go through the notes on that. Okay? So you got 48 hours. If you have any difficulties, see me. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you Friday morning. Oh, you're headed off, right? So we're going to have you do it afterwards, after you get back? Okay, that's fine. Okay, where are you going? To where? Oh, we'll be thinking of ya when you're on scary rides, screaming your lungs out.